Hey guys, welcome back to the GM's table. We're doing another Savage Settings, but this is a slightly different one because this isn't a big, thick setting book. In fact, this is a supplement for adventures, but it's free and there's two of them. So I'm going to throw them up here. Well, oh, over here. So this is the Daring Tales series. This is Daring Tales of Adventure and Daring Tales of the Space Lanes. I always trip up over that. I'm sorry. And Daring Tales of Adventure is a series of pulp adventures. In fact, it's where my absolute favorite pulp adventure, Rocket Nazis on the Orient Express, it comes from. Daring Tales of the Space Lanes is space pulp or space opera. Why this is kind of different, unique, is they sell adventures, and you can buy codexes of compiled adventures, individual adventures, but they don't actually sell a setting book. These are the rule supplements that you can get free on their site. I've searched drive-through and I don't see them for free on drive-through. So doobly doo down below. I'm going to have the links directly to Triple Ace Games website where these are free. Now that's kind of important. I'm covering both because Pulp Rules is 5 pages. Space Pulp Rules is 9 pages. And even then some of them, they have some overlapping rules. But we're going to cover why I think they're really useful. Mainly, yes, the core book handles Pulp well. But as anyone who's done Daring Tales or has done the Thrilling Tales, which is a totally separate thing, totally separate setting I'm going to cover, you can push Pulp further. And there's some great Pulp specific rules. So that's useful, especially if you want to do specifically Pulp. Daring Tales of the Space Lane, also useful for Pulp, but if you don't have the money for the sci-fi companion and you want to pump up your sci-fi a bit more, this is kind of your answer because it's free. And when we cover it, you're going to realize there's a lot of useful stuff in it. So first and foremost, we have the Pulp Rules. It's a 5-page PDF. It's pretty basic, but it has some useful stuff. They talk about heroes being heroes, which is, whatever. That's more just a reminder for playing in there. Now, this and Space Pulp have a special Benny rule, where anytime players enter combat or enter a chase, they get a Benny, as long as they're below their maximum bennies. I actually really like this if you're running high energy, high benny games, because one, it pushes players to use bennies. If they're at or above their starting benny amount, they don't get that free benny. They basically lost out on a benny spend. But also, I like mechanics that remind the GM to give out bennies, because I get so caught up in my games. I'm trying to get better about it, but I constantly forget to give out bennies when I should be. That's why I like Joker's Wild. This is another really useful rule. They have a cinematic death rule, which is useful. Both settings have rules for contacts, just automatic, which is great in Pulp, but useful in a lot of settings and a lot of games. Both have what's called the henchman rule, which Thrilling Tales has something similar to it too. When you see people talk about, well, yeah, I know there's extras, I want something tougher than an extra, but not a wild card. Thrilling Tales uses henchmen, which are extras with 3 wounds. They have 3 wounds like a wild card, but they don't have a wild die, so they're tougher. They survive in fights longer, but they don't have that wild die, which means they're actually a lot less deadly. So that's really useful. Again, I feel okay talking about these mechanics because this isn't a free PDF. I'm not giving away something being sold. Without going into it, they have heroic combat in both of them, which is kind of cool. Never-ending ammo rules, which is great. They both talk about obstacles and chases, which is a rule I love, but they don't actually fully flesh it out here. They kind of let you know how they're presented in the adventures. Rocket Nazis on the Orient Express is a great example of this because they have a chase in there. It's a great chase because anytime a club's pulled, they have a table for all the different clubs for very specific obstacles that come up rather than the generic -2 modifier because something's in the way. No, these have specific ones. This helps. I would suggest if you want to look into this, get at least one adventure so you have something to build off of on how to write these and get a good idea for these. Which means it's in here, but it's not really very useful. It's more just a, hey, heads up, this exists in our adventures. I get it. It's a free material for adventures that are looking to sell. So I get that. I give that a bit of a pass. Then they talk about specifically in Pulp police interference and how likely the police are to come in and deal with things, which is very useful in modern games. The Pulp Fisted rule, which is basically ignore unarmed defender. Both discuss how to do reoccurring villains which is very, very useful. And both discuss surrendering as a trope. Flash has a really cool way to do it with the cliffhanger cards. But if you don't have Flash, this is useful. This is super useful. Then they talk about a weird science tweak for a pre-made character in the adventures. That's really it. Like I said, it's only 5-page PDF. So, and that's including the cover and everything. But when we move on to Daring Tales of the Space Lane, these Space Pulp rules, I'm going to gloss over what they already have. They do talk about arcane backgrounds, specifically psionics. This is super useful. When you see people going, what powers do I take for psionics? This isn't like a whole rework of the arcane background. They shorten the available powers list to what makes sense for psionics for you already, which is really just time saving. And they have a couple special rules for psionics. Even if you just take the available powers, that's a huge time saver for creating psionic characters. Or as a GM going, I want psionics, but I don't want them to be everywhere. This isn't a super high magic game or anything. This is useful. They then talk about batteries, and no, not AA, AAA batteries for like laser guns. This is cruiser and battleship bombardments of weapons. This is how you deal with the big guns in like starship battles and stuff. This is super useful, and it doesn't have to be in space, which means it's actually really useful anytime you're going to be dealing with battleships or cruisers or anything like that. They talk about batteries in combat and in chases. They recover the Benny rules. They talk a little bit about blaster weapons, which kind of has the stun function. It's pretty short. There is a nice sidebar of, oh, I want to be a robot. They have some tips on how to do it without having to like completely make a whole new mechanic, which, let's be honest, Savage Rules is very much about why make a mechanic when you don't need one. So I appreciate that. And it's in its separate sidebar, which is nice. They, again, cover contacts, they cover henchmen, they cover heroic combat. I do think in Space Pulp, heroic combat's laid out a little better. I think it was definitely written later, and you can kind of see some more concise writing. Most importantly, though, they cover hyperspace. They have a new edge in here specifically for ship combat. They cover, along with hyperspace, they cover shield pods. They cover starship, specifically starship combat and starship crew. Those are super useful if you don't have the sci-fi companion. So useful. Those alone are why I'm like, okay, you want to run a sci-fi game, you want to have starship combat. All right, you don't have the money for a sci-fi companion? Go download this. It's not as fleshed out, but it's going to give you everything you need. They also have rules for wrist-mounted computers, classic pulpy sci-fi trope. And some trading rules, which is handy for really any long-traveling game, but I definitely get in a space game. Other than that, they kind of talk about weapons and armor. Again, they cover heroic combat, surrendering, reoccurring villains, all that stuff I just covered. I will say, if you're only going to download one, download Space Pulp. Most of what's in Pulp is in Space Pulp, unless it's very specific to the Pulp, like the kind of 1940s Pulp era. So, super useful, but why worry about downloading one? They're free. Download both of them. They're very small files. When you're talking about 5 pages and 9 pages, these are small PDFs. Anyways, like I said, this isn't a more standard setting, but we're going to bring light to it. This is kind of an older one. Now, everything in here, from what I've seen, doesn't clash. I think this is pre-deluxe, if I remember. None of it clashes with any rule changes in deluxe, because they're mostly tips or kind of separate things you might need. So check them out. Again, in the doobly-doo below, I'm going to have the links, because from what I can tell, they're not in Drive-Thru-RPG. But AAA Games' site has them. So with that, I will catch you guys next time. Bye. If you like that video, check out another video over here. Whatever it is, it's probably pretty good. Don't forget to like, share so other people can find the channel, and subscribe right up there. YouTube now won't let me put a link to the Patreon, but there is a link down in the description below. So if you want to help support the channel, check that out, and I will catch you guys next time.